They laughed at the quiet girl until she stood up and changed the school forever. Most students at Westbrook High didn't notice Maya Thompson on her first day. She was the kind of girl who blended in head down, hoodie up, always sitting near the back of the class. Maya had just moved to Austin, Texas, to live with her grandmother after her mother passed away in a tragic accident. At 15, she was already quieter than most a kid who had learned that silence was sometimes safer than speaking up. But what they didn't know about Maya was this: she had been training in Aikido since she was 7. Her mother, a self-defense instructor, had taught her that strength wasn't about showing off, it was about knowing when to stand firm even when you're scared. Maya carried that lesson like a shield. She didn't want to fight. She wanted to survive high school, get good grades, and keep her promise to her mom to always protect herself and others when no one else would. Westbrook High, however, wasn't going to make that easy. Brooklyn Hayes, the principal's daughter, ruled the school's social scene like a tyrant in designer jeans. Her circle of friends, often referred to as the Crown, controlled everything from who sat where in the cafeteria to who got targeted next. Brooklyn didn't like new girls, especially not quiet ones who didn't suck up to her. It didn't take long for Maya to catch her attention. It started with whispers. Then came the casual bumps in the hallway, a spilled tray at lunch. Maya kept her head down just like her grandma told her. Stay out of trouble, baby. Don't give them a reason. But Brooklyn didn't need a reason. She needed an audience. And Maya's silence made her the perfect target. Within weeks, Maya became the subject of fake rumors, cyberbullying, and subtle humiliations. Students laughed as Brooklyn's crew posted a doctored photo of Maya online, making fun of her second-hand clothes and natural hair. Teachers didn't intervene. The school counselor handed her a pamphlet and told her to stay positive. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Maya was walking home when she saw Brooklyn cornering a freshman girl behind the gym. The girl was crying, her backpack torn open, books soaked. Maya didn't hesitate. She stepped between them and said firmly, "Back off." Brooklyn smirked. "Or what you gonna cry too, hero?" What happened next wasn't violence, it was defense. Brooklyn shoved her. Maya stepped back, centered herself, and used a basic redirect technique to avoid a punch. Brooklyn stumbled, tripped, and fell. A crowd had formed. Someone pulled out their phone. Maya helped the freshman to her feet, then walked away in silence. The next day, Maya was suspended. Brooklyn's family edited the phone video, cutting the part where she struck first. They claimed Maya attacked her out of nowhere. Threats of legal action followed. Maya's grandma was devastated. Maya was heartbroken, but not surprised. Then came the unexpected. A science teacher named Mr. Carver came forward. He had seen the raw footage from another student and offered to testify. A handful of students who had once stayed silent began to speak up. The truth unraveled piece by piece. A local lawyer, Ms. Rivera, offered pro bono representation. The case gained attention on social media. Justice for Maya began trending among local teens. The school board, under pressure, held a hearing. Witnesses testified. The full video was shown. The decision was clear. Maya acted in self-defense. Her record was cleared. Brooklyn was suspended and removed from student council. The principal, under investigation for covering up prior complaints, took a sudden leave of absence. But Maya didn't stop there. She worked with Ms. Rivera, Mr. Carver, and a few other students to launch Safe Steps, a peer-led self-defense and empowerment program. They hosted workshops, brought in guest speakers, and helped students document incidents of bullying safely. Within a semester, the culture at Westbrook High began to shift. Students felt safer. Teachers took bullying reports more seriously. And Maya, once invisible, had become a symbol of change. She never wanted to be a hero. She just wanted peace. But when the world pushed her too far, Maya pushed back with strength, discipline, and a quiet kind of courage that can't be faked. They laughed at the quiet girl, but they're not laughing anymore. The noise had quieted. Weeks had passed since Maya Thompson was cleared of all accusations. Her name no longer trended online, and the whispers in the hallway had started to fade. But something in Westbrook High had changed forever. The fear that once haunted the quieter students, the overlooked, the different, the outnumbered, was no longer a given. Because someone had stood up and won. Maya didn't feel like a hero. She still avoided crowds, still preferred reading by the window in the library to being called on in class. But there was a subtle shift in how people looked at her now. Not with pity, not with amusement, with something closer to respect and curiosity. "Maya," one student asked timidly in the hallway, "could you maybe show me that thing you did? You know, when she tried to hit you?" Maya smiled gently. "It's not about fighting," she said. "It's about protecting yourself without becoming like them." That sentence, that moment, sparked something bigger than any of them expected. It began as an idea scribbled in a notebook: Safe Steps, a student empowerment program. Maya, Mr. Carver, her science teacher, and Ms. Rivera, her pro bono lawyer, met weekly to flesh it out. The goal wasn't just about teaching martial arts techniques. It was about fostering awareness, empathy, resilience, and community, a place where students could speak up, learn from each other, and grow confident in standing up for what's right. The first meeting took place in the school library after hours. Only 5 students showed up. Maya nearly canceled it. But Mr. Carver told her, 5 students is 5 more than yesterday. Big things start small. So they kept going. Week by week, the numbers grew. Students came from every background: athletes, nerds, loners, even a few who had once stood silently in the background while Maya was being bullied. No one asked them to confess. The program wasn't about shaming. It was about building something new. They started each session with a principle: respect, awareness, choice, courage. Then they moved into real-world scenarios: how to de-escalate a verbal confrontation, how to protect someone else without violence, how to document incidents safely, and yes, basic, non-aggressive self-defense techniques rooted in Aikido, the same art Maya had practiced since she was a child. If you have to use force, Maya would say, you've already lost half the battle. The real victory is staying calm, staying safe, and making sure others are too. By the end of the semester, the group had over 60 members. News of Safe Steps reached the school board. They were skeptical. Maya and her team were invited to present their case at a community meeting. This time, Maya didn't hide. She stepped up to the podium in front of dozens of adults, teachers, parents, local officials, and spoke clearly. "I didn't want to start a program. I didn't even want to fight back. I just wanted to be safe. But when the system fails to protect you, what choice do you have? We don't want revenge. We want preparation. We want a school where silence isn't the only way to survive. Safe Steps is about more than defense. It's about dignity." There was a long pause, then applause. The board approved a 6-month pilot program. Brooklyn Hayes had long left Westbrook High. Her parents moved her to a private school out of state after the scandal. Her name faded, but not her influence. A few students, remnants of the old Crown clique, resented the new shift in power. They called Safe Steps a pity club, and some mocked students who attended. Maya didn't engage. She didn't need to. Others spoke up now. One day, a student named Sama, freshman, who once ate lunch alone every day, stood up to one of Brooklyn's old friends in the cafeteria when they mocked a kid with autism. Sam wasn't a fighter, but he had been attending Safe Steps for 3 months. "I won't let you do this," Sam said. "Not anymore." The bully backed off. Other students nodded. The tide had turned. Maya received a letter in April. It was from a girl named Tanya from another high school across town. I heard what you did. I'm facing the same thing. We have no program like yours. Could you help us start one?" Maya didn't hesitate. She visited Tanya's school that week, brought printed guides, and even spoke to their principal. By the end of the month, there were 3 schools running Safe Steps chapters. Local media began to cover Maya's story again, not as a court case, but as a movement. They titled it, "The Quiet Girl Who Reshaped Her School." At a citywide education conference, Maya was invited to speak on a student panel. Her voice, once shaky in a courtroom, now carried confidence and grace. "I'm not trying to be famous. I just want students like me to know they don't have to stay afraid. We all have a choice. We can turn fear into strength, not the kind that hurts people, the kind that lifts them." Graduation came quickly. Maya walked across the stage in a blue cap and gown, her grandmother beaming from the front row. She gave a short commencement address. Simple, honest, powerful. "I used to think surviving high school meant staying invisible. But real survival means knowing who you are, even when they try to erase you. It means speaking up, even when your voice shakes. And sometimes it means being the first one to stand, so others know they can too." Tears fell. Teachers stood to clap. Maya didn't stop after high school. She received a scholarship to study social work and conflict resolution. She continued to mentor new chapters of Safe Steps across the state. What began as a self-defense moment in a rainy parking lot had grown into a network of empowered youth challenging systems, defending dignity and protecting one another. She never planned to be a leader. But when no one else would lead, Maya stepped forward, not with a shout, but with steady, unshakable quiet. And the world listened. Title: The Legacy of Maya Thompson. Part 3. When One Voice Changes Many. The fall semester at Westbrook High began under a different sky. It wasn't just the weather or the fading summer heat, it was something in the air. An expectation. A pulse of quiet determination that had slowly taken root, grown and blossomed. Maya Thompson was no longer a student at Westbrook. She had graduated with honors and left behind a legacy that had outgrown her. But what she sparked, the movement, the courage, the shift, was still alive, still evolving. The Safe Steps program had now expanded to 7 schools across Texas, each with its own team of student mentors and faculty sponsors. The Westbrook chapter, once a tiny circle of quiet kids learning to reclaim their voices, had become a model for youth-led transformation. But with that growth came challenges and choices. In the months after Maya's graduation, a new student stepped forward to lead Jordan Ellis. Jordan was a junior biracial, soft-spoken, and brilliant in ways few noticed. They had watched Maya from the sidelines the year before, too afraid to join but always wishing they had. Now, with Maya gone, Jordan didn't wait for permission. They asked Mr. Carver if they could take over coordination. The teacher smiled. "Maya already left the binder with your name on it." That fall, Safe Steps faced its first major crisis without Maya. At Lincoln Prep, a chapter school in Dallas, a female student named Brianna was suspended after she defended herself during a locker room assault. The attacker, a well-connected athlete, claimed she overreacted. Sound familiar? The footage was grainy. The principal, under pressure from the school board, buried it. Brianna's chapter lead reached out to Westbrook for help. Jordan, nervous but determined, called a meeting. "We're not lawyers," they said, "but we are leaders. Maya didn't teach us to stay quiet when things get hard. She taught us to rise." The Westbrook team gathered testimonials, pulled together Maya's case files as precedent, and worked with Ms. Rivera to advise Brianna's family. Within a week, the suspension was overturned, and the school board began a formal review of its policies. Maya's model students, speaking up, supporting each other, demanding justice, was working. Meanwhile, Maya, now a freshman at the University of Texas, balanced coursework with her growing reputation as a youth advocate. She was invited to speak on panels about conflict resolution, consulted by local officials on school safety, and interviewed by media outlets who once ignored her. But Maya missed the quiet, the silence before her story became public, the feeling of doing good without cameras' applause or headlines. She returned to Westbrook one evening unannounced. Jordan was running a safe steps session on emotional regulation, how to breathe through conflict, how to pause before reacting. Maya watched from the back of the room, her hoodie pulled up just like her first day. When the session ended, Jordan turned and saw her. "You came back," Jordan said, stunned. "I never really left," Maya replied. They sat together under the bleachers that night. Jordan shared their fears, the pressure of leading the judgment, the mistakes. "I felt all that too," Maya said. "But remember, we're not perfect. We're just necessary." That sentence became a mantra. In the winter semester, Maya collaborated with a nonprofit to publish a free guidebook titled Stand Strong as Students, Guide to Safety Support and Self-Respect. It was distributed digitally across over 200 schools in Texas and beyond. Jordan wrote the foreword. Soon, Safe Steps wasn't just a student program. It was becoming a national youth movement. But not everyone welcomed the change. In a school outside Houston, a principal tried to ban Safe Steps, claiming it promoted student insubordination and vigilante behavior. When students protested peacefully, some were suspended. A group of parents sued the school and won. The court cited Maya's original case as part of the legal argument. That same week, Maya was invited to speak before the Texas Board of Education. In her testimony, she said, "Safe Steps isn't about teaching kids to fight. It's about teaching them not to be afraid. Afraid of bullies, afraid of silence, afraid of systems that forget who they're supposed to protect. If we want schools to be safe, we need to start by believing the kids inside them." Her words reached not just lawmakers but hearts. Back at Westbrook, Jordan introduced a new addition to Safe Steps peer advocacy teams. These were small student groups trained in listening, reporting, and guiding peers through conflict without judgment. They weren't counselors. They weren't police. They were allies. One of their first success stories came from a ninth-grade student named Leah who had been suffering in silence due to harassment from her stepbrother, also a student. Through a peer advocate, she was able to safely report the abuse, receive help, and start healing. Jordan wrote a personal email to Maya. "Today, someone told their truth because they knew we'd believe them. That's because of you." As graduation neared for Jordan, the Safe Steps National Network had launched a mentorship exchange, older student leaders paired with new chapter founders to ensure sustainability. Maya, now a sophomore, trained regional mentors and helped secure funding from youth safety grants. She gave fewer interviews now, spoke less at conferences, focused more on training the next wave. In her words, "This was never about me. The minute I became the face, it got harder for others to see themselves in it. I want them to see each other instead." In the final months of the school year, Westbrook High held a special assembly in honor of Safe Steps' 5-year anniversary. Alumni, current students, teachers, and families gathered in the auditorium. Mr. Carver opened the event, voice thick with emotion. "Most of you weren't here when Maya Thompson walked into this school small and quiet. But because of her, you walk these halls differently. You walk with purpose, with protection, with pride." Maya invited, as the keynote speaker stepped up one last time. "The world won't always listen, but your story matters anyway. Speak it, live it, protect others with it. And never forget, when one voice speaks the truth, it can echo through thousands. I was just one. Now you are many." Thunderous applause. Some cried, all stood. The story of Maya Thompson didn't end when she walked out of Westbrook High. It didn't end in the courtroom, or the gymnasium, or the library where she first taught 5 kids how to breathe through fear. Her story became a ripple. That ripple became a wave. And that wave became a movement. Because sometimes it only takes one quiet girl to make a world loud with justice. And when her voice fades into the background, it's only because so many others have risen up to speak in her place. Title: Maya Thompson. Part 4: Beyond the Halls. By the time Maya Thompson reached her final year at the University of Texas, the name Safe Steps had become more than just a school initiative. It had turned into a movement woven into the fabric of youth empowerment across the country. What began in the back corner of Westbrook High's library had now expanded to 37 states, with hundreds of student-led chapters, faculty mentors, and a digital resource platform accessed by thousands each week. But success came with new battles. Maya found herself at a crossroads: continue serving as the movement's symbolic leader, or step back and let the generation behind her truly take charge. It was a question she asked herself late into the night, sitting on the rooftop of her apartment, watching the lights of Austin shimmer below. The answer came unexpectedly. She received an invitation from a school in Chicago. Unlike the supportive settings Safe Steps had grown used to, this school had never heard of the program. Violence rates were high, teachers overworked, administrators defensive. The student body was diverse, but divided, with racial tensions bubbling under the surface. "We need something different," read the message from an English teacher named Mrs. Whitmore. "We heard what you started. If you are still willing to fight, come help us start here." Maya didn't hesitate. She flew out during winter break and met with the staff, toured the school, and most importantly, listened to the students. What she heard reminded her of herself at 15. Not the leader Maya Thompson, but the girl who sat in silence, terrified of attention, wanting only to make it through the day without breaking. In a cold gymnasium lit by flickering lights, Maya held the school's first Safe Steps session. Only 12 students came. Half of them didn't talk. A few laughed nervously, but she wasn't discouraged. "This is how it started back in Westbrook," she told them. "You don't need 100 people. You just need one who believes." Over the next few months, Maya worked with those 12 students until they became 60. She stayed in Chicago longer than planned. Her professors allowed remote work. Her nonprofit partners kept things running in other states. She poured herself into this pilot school, not to create another chapter, but to transform a culture. She adapted the program, integrating restorative justice techniques, trauma-informed peer support, and conflict mediation simulations. Students weren't just learning how to avoid harm, they were learning how to repair harm when it was already done. At the same time, back at Westbrook, Jordan Ellis was finishing their own senior year. With Maya now fully occupied in Chicago, Jordan had become the national coordinator of Safe Steps. They organized monthly virtual summits, coached new leaders, and ensured the legacy stayed focused. The two kept in touch via voice notes, short, honest reflections shared at odd hours. Jordan once said, "You taught us to fight quietly. I'm teaching them to fight together." Maya replied, "We're both right. Justice has many voices." In the spring, Chicago's school board invited Maya and her core student team to speak about what they'd built. The presentation featured first-hand testimonials. A boy who said he hadn't raised his fist in 6 months because he finally had words for his anger. A girl who said she no longer hid her bruises because she knew someone would believe her. A student council member who used Safe Steps principles to defuse a racially charged fight before it escalated. The board voted unanimously to adopt the program district-wide. That summer, Maya graduated from college with dual degrees in social work and educational leadership. But she didn't take a corporate job or run for office. She created a Youth Advisory Council, a national board, made entirely of high school students from different regions, backgrounds, and experiences. They would steer safe steps into the next decade. Jordan became the council's first chair. Meanwhile, Maya began drafting her first book, When the Quiet Rise: Stories from the Movement. It combined memoir interviews and practical guidance for creating safety and dignity in any school. Then came the policy breakthrough. At a bipartisan education summit in Washington, D.C., Maya and several Safe Steps alumni were invited to consult on youth conflict intervention strategies. Lawmakers were shocked by their poise, their clarity, their data. They weren't just passionate, they were prepared. Within a year, Maya's team helped pass the Student Safety and Dignity Act, a national funding grant for peer-led anti-bullying programs. Safe Steps became a model cited in Senate hearings. But Maya refused to let it become a brand. She turned down corporate sponsorships that wanted to slap logos on t-shirts. She refused to allow monetization of trauma. Pain isn't a product, she said. It's a responsibility. 5 years after that cold gymnasium session in Chicago, Maya returned for a reunion. The school was different. Fewer fights, better attendance. A mural on the wall read, "Your voice is a shield." One of the original 12 students, now a teacher at the same school, hugged Maya tightly. "You didn't just give us tools, you reminded us we mattered." And that, Maya realized, was what it had always been about. Not the fights stopped or the policies changed, but the self-worth restored. Now in her early 30s, Maya teaches at a university training future educators and social workers. But she still travels to schools every month, not to lead, to listen. Because the movement was never about Maya Thompson. It was about every quiet kid who realized they weren't alone. And about building a world where silence no longer equals safety, because justice speaks loudest when it's shared. And now it is. Every time a student says no to violence, every time a peer advocate stops a hallway from turning hostile, every time a story is told, believed, and protected. That's Maya's legacy, not a headline, not a monument, but 1,000 safer schools and counting. Title: Maya Thompson. Part 5. The Ripple Becomes a Wave. By now, the name Maya Thompson echoed far beyond the hallways of Westbrook High. What began as one girl's stand against bullying had become a national movement, Safe Steps, and a model for youth-led reform in schools across America. But even as Maya taught at the university and helped guide the next generation, she knew change was not a straight line. It was messy, demanding, and sometimes it needed to return home. It had been nearly 15 years since Maya first stood up to injustice. In that time, she had witnessed extraordinary growth. Over 200 Safe Steps chapters were now active in all 50 states. Federal funding supported their peer advocacy teams. A digital learning platform reached nearly 2 million users. And her book, When the Quiet Rise, had become required reading in over 300 school districts. But Maya never sought fame. She sought transformation. The turning point came in the form of a letter. It was from a small town in rural Georgia, written by a 12-year-old girl named Alina Ray. "I don't think anyone listens to kids like me," Alina wrote. "We have bullies and mean teachers, and nobody stops them. I read about you in a book. Can you help us?" Maya read the letter 3 times. It reminded her of herself, young, scared, unsure if anyone would ever believe her pain. She packed her bags. Alina's town, Crossville, was different from the schools Safe Steps had transformed before. It was conservative, underfunded, and deeply skeptical of outsiders. When Maya arrived, she was greeted with polite indifference by the school board. But she had been underestimated before. She asked to sit in on classes, talk to students, listen before acting. Alina was right. Fear ruled the hallways. Discipline meant silence, One wrong word could mean suspension, and students of color were punished at rates 3 times higher than others. "This isn't a school," Maya said during a community roundtable. "It's a warning system. Kids here don't grow, they survive." The statement drew both applause and backlash. But Maya didn't flinch. She began meeting with students in the public library every Friday. No official Safe Steps chapter yet, just conversations, truths, tears. Slowly, kids brought their friends. Parents began attending. Maya trained 5 high schoolers to lead sessions themselves. And within 3 months, Crossville's first Safe Steps pilot was born. But the opposition came quickly. A school board member accused Maya of teaching rebellion. Anonymous letters circulated online questioning her motives. "She wants to turn your kids against you," one post claimed. Maya responded not with defense, but with data. She shared statistics, success stories, and student testimonies. Most powerfully, she invited Alina to speak at a town meeting. The 12-year-old stood on stage, voice trembling. "I used to cry every day before school. Now I want to come, because someone finally listened." Silence, then standing ovation. Months later, Crossville officially integrated Safe Steps into its curriculum. It became the first rural district in Georgia to do so. The pilot's success caught national attention. This wasn't just an urban or suburban issue. It was American. Back at the University of Texas, Maya reflected on the journey. It was time for Safe Steps to evolve again. With the help of Jordan Ellis and the Youth Advisory Council, Maya proposed a bold expansion, Safe Steps Global. They would partner with schools in Canada, the UK, and South Africa countries, facing their own issues with bullying, race, and educational inequality. Maya visited Johannesburg. In one township, she trained girls in conflict de-escalation and saw them later mediate a gang dispute. She traveled to Ontario, where she helped Indigenous youth integrate cultural resilience into Safe Steps frameworks. In Liverpool, she sat with Syrian refugee teens and heard how they felt invisible in British classrooms. Everywhere the message was the same. We need to be seen, heard, protected. Safe Steps was no longer an American movement. It was a human one. 10 years after the first video of Maya diffusing Brooklyn Hayes' aggression went viral, Westbrook High hosted the Safe Steps International Summit. Students and educators from over 40 countries attended. Maya opened the event with a simple sentence: "I was just trying to get through one day, and now we're changing every day." Her keynote traced the arc from fear to leadership, from a hallway confrontation to global advocacy. She introduced Alina, now 17, who led a breakout session on empowering middle school voices. Jordan Ellis, now a documentary filmmaker, premiered The Steps We Took, a feature-length film chronicling the movement. Former skeptics, now allies, shared their change of heart. And through it all, Maya moved quietly, not as the center, but as the thread stitching the movement together. When Maya turned 35, she returned to Westbrook for a quiet walk. The library still stood, the cafeteria too. The locker where she had once found cruel notes now had a Safe Steps sticker. She sat on the bench outside the gym and saw a group of freshmen practicing breathing exercises, the same ones she had taught over a decade ago. She smiled. Legacy, she realized, is what you leave behind. It's what keeps walking forward long after you've let go. At the end of that year, Maya released her second book, Echoes in the Hall: What We Owe the Future. It became a New York Times bestseller. But she cared less about numbers than letters. She kept them all. From the girl in Seattle who found courage to report abuse. From the boy in Kansas who stopped a fight with just his words. From the teacher in Mumbai who translated Safe Steps into Hindi. Every story a ripple, every ripple a wave. As she stood on stage in New York, accepting an award for global educational leadership, Maya's final words were not about her. They called me the quiet girl, but the truth is, I was just the first one to speak. The real story is all of you who answered back. And the auditorium rose as one, not to celebrate Maya Thompson, but to celebrate the thousands who once sat in silence and now at last stood tall. The story of Maya Thompson is more than a personal journey. It's a blueprint for how ordinary people can ignite extraordinary change. From a quiet, overlooked student enduring bullying in silence to the founder of a nationwide and eventually global movement called Safe Steps, Maya's life shows us that you don't have to be powerful to be impactful. You just have to be brave enough to start. In today's world where social pressure, discrimination, and silence still affect millions, especially youth, Maya's journey is deeply relevant. It reminds us that the first step toward change doesn't begin in a courtroom or through a viral video. It begins when someone refuses to be silent any longer. So how can we apply Maya's lessons to our lives? Right now, 1. Listen before acting. Whether you're a parent, teacher, friend, or colleague, don't rush to fix or judge. Sometimes the greatest support you can offer is to listen without interruption. Maya succeeded not because she had all the answers, but because she took time to hear others' pain. 2. Don't underestimate your voice. Maya didn't intend to become a leader. She simply stood up for what was right, and others followed. In your community, your workplace, or even your own family, your words might be the spark that helps others speak up too. 3. Teach peaceful conflict resolution. In a world quick to react with anger, learning how to de-escalate tension, stay calm under pressure, and respond with empathy is a superpower. Maya's programs emphasized this, or should we? 4. Build safe spaces. Whether online, in schools, or at home, create environments where people feel seen, heard, and respected. That's where healing begins and trust grows. 5. Remember, real change is slow, but possible. Maya's movement didn't become national overnight. It took time, setbacks, and sacrifice. But her persistence turned ripples into waves. Be patient with the process. Ultimately, Maya's legacy is not about being the loudest, it's about being consistent, courageous, and kind. Her story shows us that no matter how quiet you start, your voice can echo farther than you ever imagined. And in a world that often forgets to care, that's a legacy worth building. Maya Thompson stood up when it was hardest to speak. She didn't just fight for herself, she fought for every child who's ever felt voiceless, unseen, or unsafe in a place that should have protected them. Now we turn to you. If Maya's courage inspired you, show your support by leaving a comment below. What would you say to Maya if she were standing in front of you today? Would you thank her, encourage her, or remind her how far she's come? And here's a question we'd love your help with. What should Maya do next? Should she run for public office to change policy at the national level? Should she focus on writing more books to reach even more youth? Or maybe she should return to her roots and open a school built entirely on the values of safe steps. We want to hear your voice. Because if Maya taught us anything, it's that every voice matters. Drop your thoughts in the comments because the story isn't over yet, and you might just help shape its next chapter.